There are many countries on the planet with controversial realities, but probably none like this one. A nation considered by many to be the richest in natural resources in the world and home to some of the most beautiful women. Yet it suffers from such a severe social crisis that its currency has become worth less than the paper it is printed on. In this new video from Kinglaty, we will learn more about Venezuela, one of the most beautiful, extreme, and fascinating countries on Earth. Venezuela holds the largest oil reserves in the world, the greatest gold deposits in the Americas, and the fourth largest reserves of natural gas globally. It is a land of breathtaking beauty, home to the tallest and most dazzling waterfall on the planet, and a history that will surely surprise you. Its mountains remain untouched since prehistoric times, while jungles like the Amazon still shelter tribes living without contact with the outside world, many of whom do not even wear clothes. This country is full of curiosities, such as winning more beauty contests than any other nation. Beauty has become such a source of national pride that the government itself supports training programs, beauty courses, and even cosmetic surgeries like rhinoplasty and breast augmentation. Venezuela's natural and cultural beauty, however, stands in sharp contrast with the hardships of its people. Despite its vast wealth, resources remain in the hands of a few who claim to act in the name of the motherland, while making decisions that change the destiny of millions, without being accountable to anyone. This contradiction is mirrored even in nature itself, with tiny yet terrifying creatures capable of inflicting unbearable pain, including one that can enter a man's private parts. Today's realities echo Venezuela's past. It was here that centuries ago European settlers encountered cannibal tribes for the first time, so pay close attention and don't miss this video, because discovering Venezuela with us will surprise you more than you can imagine. Let's get started. Immersed in the densest and most impenetrable jungle of Latin America lies Venezuela, a natural treasure so extreme that it is considered by many not only the richest country in the world in terms of resources, but also one of the most breathtakingly beautiful. Venezuela is located in northern South America. It is bordered to the north by the Caribbean Sea, to the east by Guyana, to the south by Brazil, and to the west by Colombia. Its size and geographic diversity make it a truly unique nation. From the Amazon rainforest to the vast plains of the Gran Sabana, from the Andean peaks of Merida to the Caribbean coastline, and even the deserts of Los Médanos de Coro, Venezuela is a land of striking contrasts. It is also one of the most biodiverse countries on the planet, with thousands of plant and animal species, many of them found nowhere else in the world. Among its wildlife treasures is the capybara, the largest rodent on Earth. The capybara, the world's largest rodent, can exceed 60 kilograms. Venezuela is also home to impressive reptiles such as the green anaconda, the largest snake on the planet, which can reach up to 12 meters in length. Alongside them live unique species of birds, amphibians, and fish that exist only in its rivers and jungles. From the majestic scarlet macaw to tiny, brightly colored frogs in the tepuis, Venezuela's fauna blends size, color, and rarity into a spectacle unmatched anywhere else on Earth. Venezuela has a population of over 30 million people, and most of them are concentrated in cities like Caracas, Maracaibo, Valencia, and Barquisimeto. Meanwhile, the dense jungles of the Amazon remain largely untouched and unexplored, still home to tribes with very limited contact with the outside world. Venezuela's natural wealth is honestly just dazzling. Its mountains, rivers, and waterfalls seem almost otherworldly. Among them stands Angel Falls, the highest waterfall in the world, and its majesty leaves visitors absolutely speechless. The origin of its name carries a story of epic adventure that you'll soon discover, but you know, Venezuela is not defined by beauty alone. The country is also, well, one of the world's great powerhouses of natural resources. Its abundance could have ensured prosperity for generations. Rich in oil, gas, and minerals, Venezuela holds almost unmatched economic potential. It possesses the largest oil reserves on the planet, a fact that has kept it at the center of the global economy since the early 20th century. The first modern oil discovery dates back to 1914, and for decades, oil brought prosperity. Revenues from crude exports allowed Venezuelans to enjoy one of the highest standards of living in Latin America, with infrastructure, education, and services rivaling those of developed nations. But, over time, everything began to change. Venezuela's wealth is not limited to oil. The country also has the largest gold reserves in the Americas, an abundance dating back to colonial times when Spanish conquistadors arrived in search of treasure. Additionally, Venezuela ranks as the fourth largest natural gas producer in the world, another resource that could have ensured decades of prosperity. However, its potential was constrained by history, politics, and the concentration of wealth. To understand this fully, we must look at its past, beginning with the original tribes, the arrival of European colonizers, and eventually, its present-day rulers. Before Christopher Columbus set foot on its shores, Venezuela was inhabited by diverse indigenous peoples such as the Caribs, Pemon, Yanomami, and Warao. They lived through fishing, hunting, and agriculture while maintaining a deep respect for nature. Their ways of life were so unique and fascinating that they remain remarkable even by modern standards. The Caribs, for example, gave rise to the word cannibals. European explorers who encountered them wrote chronicles describing war rituals in which defeated enemies were symbolically treated, leading outsiders to believe their flesh was consumed. However, no evidence confirms this. Most likely these were symbolic and ceremonial practices meant to instill fear and strengthen community bonds, vital for survival against external threats. Far from being merely macabre, such traditions reflected resilience, strategy, and determination, leaving a legacy that continues to intrigue those studying their past. Today, some indigenous groups, such as the Yanomami, still live much as they did centuries ago, deep in the Amazon rainforest. They preserve traditions that might seem controversial to outsiders. Media, Yanomami traditional ceremony, indigenous polygamous family group, tribal family gathering, Venezuela polygamy, communal life where one man may have several wives, and occasional nudity as part of rituals connecting them to the land. These practices form part of a profound cultural system where survival, family, and spirituality intertwine, values modern societies may have long forgotten. Their knowledge is equally impressive. These tribes developed advanced understanding of natural medicine, river navigation, and initiation rites. Their culture shows that human adaptation and diversity can be as extraordinary as Venezuela's fauna and landscapes themselves. Christopher Columbus encountered these lands in 1498 during his third voyage to the New World. Soon after, Spanish settlements began to appear, driven by the pursuit of gold and cocoa, resources already prized at the time. The country's name is also rooted in this colonial past. When explorers observed indigenous stilt houses on Lake Maracaibo, dwellings built over water, they were reminded of Venice, the Italian city of canals. Inspired by this resemblance, they named the land Venezuela, meaning Little Venice. Wealth was only discovered centuries later when oil exploitation began to transform the Venezuelan economy and society. Spanish is the main language due to this past, but more than 30 indigenous languages still survive in the country, reflecting its cultural and ethnic diversity. Racial mixing has also given rise to what many consider one of the most beautiful populations on the planet, especially its women, who have won numerous international beauty contests. But before talking about beauty and culture, it is important to continue with recent history to understand why so much wealth has not meant prosperity for all. Although Venezuela could have been one of the richest countries on the planet, the concentration of power and decision-making in the hands of a few has greatly limited this potential. For much of the 20th century, Venezuela was a wealthy country in every sense, and so were its inhabitants. After the discovery and exploitation of oil, Venezuela experienced years of relative stability and prosperity. Its citizens enjoyed education, healthcare, and a standard of living that many countries envied. However, by the end of the 20th century and the beginning of the 21st, the arrival of certain leaders and their control over resources began to transform the economy. Recent governments implemented policies that radically changed the economic landscape, generating hyperinflation and shortages that directly affected the daily lives of millions of Venezuelans. Today, although Venezuela remains one of the richest nations in natural resources, the majority of its population faces extreme economic and social difficulties, while abundance remains concentrated in the hands of a few. To better understand this reality, it is important to grasp what hyperinflation is and what it entails with a real-life example. Inflation is the widespread and sustained increase in the prices of goods and services in a country. But when this increase accelerates uncontrollably, we call it hyperinflation, a phenomenon capable of destroying the purchasing power of the population within months or even weeks. In Venezuela, hyperinflation began to intensify in the 21st century when the government implemented price control policies and massively increased the issuance of money to cover growing public spending. The amount of money in circulation grew much faster than the production of goods and services, causing prices to rise at rates impossible to keep up with. To better visualize this, imagine the following. What could previously be bought with 1 bolivar suddenly required thousands. The exchange rate with the dollar, for example, collapsed. At one time, $1 was equivalent to 4 bolivars, while at the worst point of inflation, $1 could be worth more than $1 million. The result of hyperinflation was devastating. People literally needed suitcases full of bills to buy a loaf of bread, and prices changed drastically overnight. For example, bread that once cost 10 bolivars could suddenly be worth thousands. Bolivars could cost 10,000 one day, and the next month millions were needed. Hyperinflation did not only affect food prices, everything from transportation to electricity began to rise at breakneck speeds. Citizens who could previously cover their basic needs with their monthly salary soon discovered that their wages were no longer enough to buy even bread and milk. To better understand this, the current official exchange rate in Venezuela is approximately 146 bolivars per dollar, according to the Central Bank of Venezuela. However, the minimum monthly wage remains at 130 bolivars, a figure similar to that of decades ago, when $1 was equivalent to just 4 bolivars. This means that at the current exchange rate, the minimum wage is worth less than $1 per month. Such a huge disparity reflects the aftermath of years of economic crisis, in which inflation and devaluation have drastically eroded the purchasing power of the population. Because of this, a worker who receives the monthly minimum wage of 130 bolivars can only afford a fraction of basic goods, such as food or medicine, without additional income. Hyperinflation also changed the way people perceive money. Saving in local currency became meaningless, and many began to keep their savings in dollars, euros, or even durable goods such as non-perishable food and appliances, which held their value better. Transportation became another economic challenge. A ticket that once cost just a few bolivars could require thousands or even millions over the months, forcing citizens to walk long distances or share rides to reduce expenses. The paradox of living in a country so rich in resources became increasingly evident. While Venezuela has the largest oil reserves on the planet, abundant gold, and enough natural gas to supply entire regions, daily life became unreasonably expensive. A clear example is the price of gasoline compared to basic goods. For years, and even today in some cases, a bottle of water could cost more than filling a gas tank, a situation that seems impossible anywhere else in the world. Businesses were forced to adjust their prices several times a day. Low-denomination bills became useless, and a parallel market for foreign currencies and bartering emerged, keeping the economy functioning in an improvised manner. Education also suffered greatly. Schools and universities, especially public ones, faced shortages of materials, staff cuts, and difficulties in maintaining infrastructure. Many young people saw their opportunities to study and access job opportunities severely limited. The healthcare system partially collapsed as well, with hospitals lacking essential medicines, equipment, and sufficient staff. This forced citizens to turn to private solutions or rely on community support networks for survival. Surviving diseases that were previously controllable has become a challenge. Despite all these difficulties, creativity and solidarity have allowed millions of Venezuelans to keep going. The adaptation to hyperinflation and the resilience of Venezuelans is extraordinary. Many turn to the internet and social media to generate income through freelance work, network marketing, or by taking advantage of currency exchange as a means of survival. Others sought alternatives in cryptocurrencies, remittances from family members, or bartering within their communities. All of this is happening in a country that, given its potential, could be one of the most prosperous on the planet. The paradox of Venezuela illustrates how resource wealth does not always translate into well-being for its citizens. While the land is rich in oil, gold, and gas, daily life is becoming dramatically more expensive, and the economy remains a constant challenge. Much of Venezuela's current economic situation is due to, a combination of internal and external factors. On the one hand, international restrictions and sanctions have really limited the country's ability to export resources and acquire essential products, which affects the availability of goods on the market and creates shortages. On the other hand, resource management and internal political decisions have also influenced the distribution of wealth. The concentration of resources in the hands of certain groups, combined with the lack of effective control mechanisms, has meant that a large part of the population does not benefit from the nation's abundant wealth. So this mix of external and internal factors explains why, despite being a country extremely rich in oil, minerals, and biodiversity, Venezuelans still face daily economic difficulties that make their homeland one of the most challenging places in the world. It is a land of extremes, often bordering on the unbelievable. For instance, despite the severe hardships faced by the population, the government not only subsidizes beauty courses for women, but also provides subsidies for surgeries such as rhinoplasty or breast augmentation. This surprising reality is closely tied to the fact that Venezuela is considered the country with the most beautiful women in the world. Recognized worldwide, Venezuela has won more beauty contests than any other nation, securing a total of 24 titles across the 4 most important competitions: 7 in Miss Universe, 6 in Miss World, 9 in Miss International, and 2 in Miss Earth. This success is often attributed to a mix of the country's racial and cultural diversity, the personal care habits of its people, and the influence of its warm climate and paradisiacal landscapes. To maintain this leading position, the country has implemented policies that support training in modeling, aesthetics, and plastic surgery, so much so that the government itself has subsidized beauty courses and surgical procedures, including rhinoplasty and breast augmentation. The aim has been to promote beauty as a national value and consolidate Venezuela's image as the nation with the most beautiful women on the planet. However, this obsession with beauty has generated much controversy and debate. Despite the country's economic difficulties, many women have taken advantage of these subsidies, leading some to argue that physical appearance is valued above general well-being. Instead of addressing issues such as poverty or education, leaders appear to have prioritized aesthetics as a way of projecting a positive image of the country. This is a striking reality, especially considering that while many Venezuelans cannot afford proper education or even daily meals, others benefit from financial aid to change their physical appearance. Venezuela is, in fact, known for having one of the highest rates of cosmetic surgery per capita in the world, particularly breast augmentation procedures. It is estimated that in recent years, such procedures have exceeded 85,000 annually. In Venezuelan society, cosmetic surgery, especially breast augmentation, has become a common practice and, in many cases, a family tradition. It is not unusual for mothers to encourage their daughters to undergo surgery as a way to improve their appearance and, with it, their social and professional opportunities. This phenomenon has even been described by some as a rite of passage. From another perspective, this seems nonsensical, considering the poverty and struggles faced by Venezuelans. Yet, it makes sense when one realizes that government subsidies provide young women with opportunities they might otherwise lack, offering them a chance at a better future. This is the peculiar reality of beauty in Venezuela, one we will explore further in this video. Now let's shift to a different story, one tied to both the beauty of Venezuela and one of its most remarkable natural wonders, the highest and most spectacular waterfall in the world, Angel Falls. So high that before reaching the ground, much of its water turns into mist. When you hear the name Salto Angel, you might assume it is linked to religion or an ancient colonial legend. It seems logical. After all, the word angel evokes images of heaven, divinities, or Spanish traditions, but nothing could be further from the truth. As you will now discover, the real story is far more surprising. It was the 1930s when an American pilot named Jimmy Angel was flying through the skies of southern Venezuela. He was not looking for angels or saints, and his surname was pronounced in English, not Spanish. Jimmy was searching for gold. Yes, although his surname would later be given to one of nature's greatest treasures, his true mission was simply to find gold lost in the jungle and hidden among the imposing tepuis, those enormous tabletop mountains so mythical in Venezuela that they seem to belong to another world. The tepuis are vast rocky plateaus with vertical walls and flat summits, rising like islands suspended above the Venezuelan jungle. At times their peaks even float above the clouds. These geological formations, unique on Earth, have remained almost untouched for millions of years due to their inaccessibility. As a result, they harbor isolated ecosystems found nowhere else. Their otherworldly appearance and total isolation make them mysterious and fascinating places, perfect settings for legends and daring adventures such as the one Jimmy Angel found himself in. One day, while flying over the Gran Sabana, the name given to this surreal region of plateaus, he saw something breathtaking. From the top of the tepui known as Ollantepui, an entire river hurled itself into the abyss in a fall that seemed to touch the sky but never reach the ground. Fascinated, Jimmy decided to land his plane on top of this majestic mountain. But here came the unexpected twist. His landing was a disaster. The plane became stuck in the mud, stranded on top of this seemingly unreachable tepui. What had begun as a glorious discovery turned into a natural trap. Jimmy, his wife, and two companions were stranded for 11 days at a dizzying altitude, struggling through jungles, swamps, and cliffs, unsure if they would ever survive. Yet against all odds, they managed to descend and tell the world about the wonders they had witnessed. What could have ended in tragedy instead became a legend that would one day captivate the entire planet. The story spread, and soon the highest natural waterfall in the world bore Jimmy Angel's name, not because of religion or mysticism, but simply to honor the man who, almost by accident, revealed it to the world. Although Jimmy never discovered the gold he sought, he gifted humanity with a far greater and more eternal treasure. Angel Falls, the tallest waterfall on Earth, with a drop of nearly 1 kilometer, 976 meters, from the top of Ollantepui. For the indigenous Pemon people, however, this wonder already had a name, Karapakupai Meru, meaning the fall from the deepest place. It's, a reminder that nature holds secrets more valuable than gold. Reaching Angel Falls is no easy feat, just as it wasn't for the hero of this story. Honestly, getting there requires days of travel through dense jungle, winding rivers, and rugged terrain. But the effort is worth it because the waterfall is a natural wonder so extraordinary that it almost seems unreal. Its immense height makes the water turn into mist before even touching the ground, veiling the landscape in a dreamlike shroud. If you enjoyed this story, give us a like so we can continue exploring and creating more videos like this every week. And don't forget to subscribe. Kinglaty invites you to discover the secrets and wonders of the world like you've never seen them before. Thank you for joining us. But the adventure in Venezuela doesn't end here. Another jewel of the Venezuelan Gran Sabana is Mount Roraima, a majestic tepui like the Ollantepui, which rises like an island above the sky. This plateau is so remarkable that it inspired writer Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, creator of Sherlock Holmes, to write The Lost World. In his novel, he imagined part of the South American plateau still inhabited by prehistoric creatures. Some locals even believe that this story may hold a grain of truth. When you look at Mount Roraima from above, you understand why these formations inspire fantasy stories. The tepuis of the Gran Sabana appear like real floating islands with their peaks rising above the clouds. Those lucky enough to see them from the sky can witness one of the most breathtaking landscapes on the planet. Venezuela's nature is as unique as its tepuis and its majestic waterfalls, which seem to spring directly from the sky. Perhaps this is why the country is also home to a natural phenomenon found nowhere else on Earth, an eternal lightning storm that lights up the night year after year. This is the Catatumbo lightning over Lake Maracaibo, a spectacle that defies meteorological logic. Here, thunderstorms occur almost every night, lasting for hours, and most surprisingly, often without thunder. Just lightning that paints the sky in flashes of blue and white. This phenomenon can be seen from hundreds of kilometers away, impressing locals, tourists, and scientists alike. NASA has recognized it as the world's lightning capital, with an average of 300 storms per year and over 1.6 billion lightning strikes annually. Venezuelans cherish it as another natural treasure, a display of light that inspires legends and awe, especially during the rainy season from November to April. But perhaps even stranger than the Catatumbo lightning is a ghost skyscraper in the heart of Caracas, a place that looks like something out of a dystopian movie. This is the Torre de David, the tallest unoccupied office tower in the world. Originally designed as a symbol of modernity and progress, construction was halted and left unfinished. Eventually, thousands of families moved in, transforming it into a vertical city. Entire floors became homes, shops, and community spaces, creating a unique urban phenomenon. This tower, blending modern architecture with improvised survival, starkly reflects the contradictions of life in Venezuela. As we near the end of our journey through one of the most extraordinary countries on the planet, we encounter realities that are both fascinating and frightening. One of the most feared creatures in the Amazonian rivers of Venezuela and Brazil is a tiny fish known as the candiru. Despite its small size, this fish has the ability to cause excruciating pain. The reason lies in its attraction to urea present in urine. If a man urinates directly into these waters, the candiru may be drawn to the stream and even attempt to enter the urethra. In other words, it may enter the male genital tract. The pain it causes is sharp and burning, triggered by the spines of the fish and the pressure it exerts while trying to lodge itself inside. For this reason, locals and visitors alike take precautions. They avoid urinating directly in rivers where the fish lives, or they cover themselves while bathing. Removing a candiru is difficult and requires immediate medical attention, as delays can lead to severe complications. Though extremely rare, the candiru's reputation has inspired an almost legendary fear and respect among those who navigate the Amazon waters. With that in mind, would you dare to swim here? Share your thoughts in the comments. This tiny but dangerous creature reminds us that in a land of wonders, there are also unique species that demand caution. Another animal sure to shock first-time visitors is the capybara, the largest rodent in the world. Native to Venezuela and much of South America, it can grow over a meter long and weigh up to 60 kilograms. Its size and resemblance to a giant rat can be, well, a little intimidating, yet the capybara is actually a peaceful herbivore. Between its unusual wildlife, breathtaking landscapes, and rich cultural history, Venezuela remains a spectacular country worth discovering in greater depth. That's why, at Kinglaty Documentary, we've researched how you can get there and experience its magic for yourself. If you're traveling from the Americas, there are direct flights to Caracas and other major cities from countries such as the United States, Brazil, and Colombia. From Europe, the most common route is via Madrid or Amsterdam, with connections to Maiquetía International Airport near Caracas. Once in Venezuela, getting around is relatively simple thanks to a network of domestic flights and buses between major cities. To reach remote regions like the Gran Sabana or the Tepuis, it's common to combine ground transport with local flights to small airstrips near the national parks. Best of all, Venezuela is currently one of the most affordable destinations in the world for travelers with US dollars or euros due to hyperinflation, though it's always wise to check the latest exchange rate. For example, a full meal for two can cost as little as $10. A night in a basic hotel can cost around $20, depending on the location and season. For excursions to iconic places such as Angel Falls, there are organized tours that include small plane flights from Roraima, local guides, and accommodation in camps or lodges. These tours allow you to fly over the Tepuis and get close to the highest waterfall on the planet while enjoying spectacular views of the surrounding jungle. If you are interested in learning about indigenous tribes such as the Warao or the Yanomami, there are also excursions guided by local experts. These trips include safe jungle hikes, cultural visits, and opportunities to learn about traditional customs, always respecting the privacy and way of life of the communities. It is important to note that despite all its wonders, Venezuela can also be dangerous in certain respects. Social inequality, extreme living conditions in remote regions, and insecurity in some cities require caution. Travelers are advised to go with guides, learn about safe areas, and avoid moving around at night or in isolated places. At Kinglaty Documentary, we sincerely hope that the situation in Venezuela will improve soon, and that life will become fairer, especially in a country so rich in resources and culture. The resilience of Venezuelans is remarkable, and many examples show that even in the midst of adversity, creativity and human strength can make a difference. As you have seen, exploring Venezuela is an experience full of contrasts. Landscapes that seem like another planet, ancient cultures and unique traditions, alongside a social reality that challenges visitors to reflect on inequality, survival, and resilience. Venezuela teaches us that a country can be magical and challenging, dangerous and generous, harsh yet full of hope, all at the same time. At Kinglaty Documentary, we will continue exploring every week to share the magic you can find in this world like nowhere else. Places like the one you can now see in this video. Click on it, you're going to enjoy